Hello, everyone, and surprise again. It's me, Serene. Emotional Abuse is Real is still on its August hiatus, but I have another special bonus episode for your listening pleasure today. I'm back as a guest on Krista Dykes' Secret Mom Hacks podcast, and this time we are talking about what it's like to parent a neurodivergent child. As I've mentioned before on both my podcast and on my Instagram, I am the mom to an almost 8-year-old girl who is twice exceptional and who has ADHD and autism spectrum disorder. It's a lot. So I'm so grateful to Krista for letting me speak my raw, unvarnished truth about this subject, and I'm thrilled to now share it as a bonus on my own podcast feed. Hope you enjoy, and I'll be back in September with all new episodes of Emotional Abuse is Real.
This is Secret Mom Hacks, episode number 80. My name is Krista, and I'm your host. It's August 14th, 2024, and on today's show, I'm serving up part 2 of my 4-part series with my friend and fellow podcast host, Serene Leeds. That name should sound familiar as I released part 1 of our chat back on episode 77 about breastfeeding. And August is National Breastfeeding Month. So if you or a new mom you know is struggling with that episode is a must listen. But today's episode continues my chat with Serene. She's been open on her Instagram feed about parenting a neurodivergent child. And on today's show, we're taking a deeper dive into this part of her motherhood journey. But before we get into that, I just want to say, thanks for tuning in, Mama. I started this podcast because babies don't come with instructions. As of this recording, I am chasing around a 6-year-old that no amount of Googling, mom groups, or books were able to prepare me for. There's a lot of stuff people don't talk about when it comes to pre-pregnancy, during pregnancy, postpartum, parenthood, and as someone who was previously terrified of all of the above, I'm here to help you pull back the curtain on all of it. And every now and then, it may get a little messy. We may share a little TMI, but that's why you're here, right? My goal is you'll leave every episode feeling refreshed, inspired, and hopeful knowing you're not on this mom journey alone. Now, there's a lot of subject matter to cover when it comes to mom life, and we are covering it all. If you're not following this podcast yet, make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure you head over to secretmomhacks.com and enter your email address to subscribe for free so you don't miss a single episode. Now, let's dive back into my conversation with Serene Leeds, host of Emotional Abuse is Real. Let's move on to the next segment of our conversation, which is parenting a neurodivergent child. Tell us about your daughter and the journey to the ADHD diagnosis, along with the autism evaluation, which I know is very new because you just got that yesterday.
Yesterday. So yeah, Krista, how much time do you have? No, I'm kidding. I know we said it before we started recording, but I'm very open about this. I was so grateful that I had my therapy session this morning because I just received a full neuropsych evaluation for my daughter yesterday. So I'm still processing a lot of this information. So I have a beautiful and brilliant and beautiful, because brilliant's more important than beautiful, daughter. She will be 8 later this summer, and she has both ADHD and autism spectrum disorder. What we learned yesterday, none of it was surprising, but you always need that time to process seeing something when it is black and white. So we never had any inkling that she was neurodivergent until she began kindergarten. She started daycare, which evolved into preschool a couple of months before her 2nd birthday. And she seemed to do fine in the preschool setting, but really everything started to change in kindergarten. In kindergarten, we were starting to get regular emails from the teacher informing us that she wasn't listening, her behavior was an issue, she wasn't following directions. And it was hard for us to take what was happening seriously because compounding the situation the year she was in kindergarten was, you ready for this? Her wonderful kindergarten teacher had to take a leave of absence very early in the year to care for her cancer-stricken husband. So we got that. Then they were scrambling to find a substitute. They did, but she was completely in over her head. And then 1 or 2 months before the school year ended, she abruptly left, citing personal reasons. So
that's a lot of change for anyone.
It's a lot for anyone. So this is a very long-winded way of saying that part of the challenge for parents of neurodivergent children is the process is, to use a very old-fashioned term, moves as slow as molasses. And this is something that I have been dealing with now for a good 2 years. So in early 2022, my daughter started kindergarten in fall 2021. The school started involving their in-house psychologists, and we had a couple of meetings, and they were really lacking empathy. And what was really interesting was the school psychologist assigned to my daughter was such a poor communicator and lacked so much empathy that she inspired my grad school thesis about poor communication in American public schools. So thanks, Ms. Monroe. Well done. Anyway, so the first thing that we did was I contacted our pediatrician in early 2022, and they were very quick to pass the buck. They said, I described what was going on with my daughter, and she referred us to a developmental pediatrician. So that was early 2022. Our first appointment with the developmental pediatrician occurred in June 2022. This is the first of many, many, many instances where any sort of help that we are trying to get for our daughter takes forever. And even then, it was a telehealth appointment. But she was able to diagnose our daughter through Zoom with ADHD. So at least we had that. She sent something called a 504 plan to our school. So starting in first grade, our daughter had several accommodations. And because she was still so young, there really wasn't much else that she was recommending. And so we were still pretty much in the dark. So we soon learned that was not enough. We spent most of the first grade struggling with our daughter at home, at school. Eventually, the developmental pediatrician recommended that our daughter start attending a social development group. She's been doing that since April 2023, and that's been fantastic. But that was only one piece of the puzzle. And again, getting her that first intake appointment took several months. So then summer 2023 is when things really started to take a turn. She was sent home from camp for dysregulated behavior. So I immediately called the developmental pediatrician begging for help. And we then began our still ongoing medication journey. It's really a trial and error situation. And so that's still ongoing. She seems to be okay now, but there's still a lot that we're dealing with. And it was in summer 2023 when I asked for referrals for an individual therapist because she needed help. She's in her own world a lot and, again, doesn't really engage with her peers as much as kids her age really do, not listening, just very absorbed in herself. So next step, find her a therapist. Took all summer. The good news is she's been seeing a phenomenal therapist since fall 2023. Fall 2023, she started second grade with a wonderful teacher. She was attending her social development group. We are still trying a few different medication options. By this time, the developmental pediatrician was more involved. That was really what we were waiting for. As soon as the kid gets on medication, finally the developmental pediatrician gets more involved because she was like barely seeing her. So that was frustrating. But of all the supports that the school had put into place and all of the extra services we were getting for her outside of school, it just wasn't enough. She was still getting into trouble, not doing her work, not listening, getting dysregulated, not following directions. But at least this year in second grade, she has a great school psychologist in her corner. So all of that is improving. But by early 2024, it became clear that she could not function in a mainstream classroom. And it's incredibly frustrating for us because, and we'll get into that, she is academically brilliant, but her neurodivergence is preventing her from getting the most out of school and the most out of life. So the school did a full evaluation. And that culminated in a special education committee meeting. Now, this is where things get even more frustrating for parents of neurodivergent kids. The evaluation report was only able to say that she met the criteria for the autism spectrum. They could not officially diagnose her or tell us what other services she needed. The long and the short of it is we moved her out of a mainstream classroom, and she's now in a classroom called integrated co-teaching classroom. And the way that works is that there are two teachers, one general education teacher and one special education teacher. Because again, she doesn't need remedial education, but she needs multiple people to help her pay attention and get her work done. She seems to be doing a little bit better in this classroom, but we still do get the occasional email saying like, well, she did this today and this behavior happened. And my reaction is, and our therapist's reaction is, yeah, well, isn't that why she's in that class?
Sure.
Right? So that can get frustrating. Anyway, so then it was recommended that we get a full diagnostic evaluation done through our therapy practice, because that was going to be the only way we would know exactly what her diagnosis is, because it was clear that it was more than just ADHD. And that was yet another weight. I think the conversations about that started in February. The first session for the evaluation was in early April. And we received the results yesterday, June 3rd. So that's why when I keep saying how things move slowly and everything is long and drawn out, and it's not because these people are slow, they are inundated. There are so many people out there looking for these services. So as you can see, I am still processing the information that we received. We're still going over the full report. We're sharing it with our daughter's teachers and her support professionals. I'm not in a position to share all of those details right now, but like I said, she was officially confirmed as being on the autism spectrum. And what is incredible is that evaluation also confirmed that she is what's known as twice exceptional, which is she is gifted. So she's incredibly smart, but she needs a significant amount of support. It's not severe autism, but the support that she needs is significant, and it takes up a lot of my time and energy and a lot of our money. And I just want to say that I love my daughter more than anything in the world. But one of the reasons why I'm talking with you about this today and why I'm going to be talking about it a lot more is because what I think a lot of people don't understand is that there's parenting, which is hard. But then there's also parenting a neurodivergent child, which is 100 times more challenging.
Thank goodness, Serene, she has you and your husband as her parents, because as you've illustrated, there is such a need for these resources. And so I can only imagine the number of parents and the number of kiddos who aren't getting the support they need, not only because there is such a long wait list, but even from parents who just either they may not know where to start or they just don't care. I mean, to be frank, unfortunately, there are parents out there who don't care. And thank goodness she has you as her mama and digging into these resources. And it is a lot. It is a lot.
It's a lot.
Well, How have these experiences influenced your perspective on neurodiversity and advocating for your child's unique needs?
It's changed my outlook so much because prior to having a neurodivergent child, I looked at it as an other people's problem. And because the only people I knew who were neurodivergent were, so my brother, who's now 40, back in the 1980s, he was diagnosed with a now outdated term, ADD, attention deficit disorder. We don't even use that anymore. And my husband's nephew, who is almost 20, he is more severely autistic. There's really no comparison between him and my daughter. He has a very childlike outlook on the world. But what I have been learning over the past few years is that there's a reason why this is called an autism spectrum, because every case is different. And my goodness, is the spectrum broad. I love going on social media and finding autistic TikTokers and Instagrammers so I can learn more about their experience and to try to better understand my daughter's brain. Because here's the thing, Krista, talking to and communicating with my daughter is like, it's like speaking two different languages. She can't always understand basic directions, and I can't always understand her thought process. So it's incredibly frustrating for both of us. I think one of the hardest parts is I can't have a real conversation with her. The way, and here's the thing. So she is actually incredibly verbal. There are some people who are on the spectrum who are nonverbal, who aren't as verbal. I always like to use the example on Sesame Street a few years ago. They introduced an autistic Muppet and they purposely made Julia not terribly verbal. That's great. My daughter is the opposite. Her language skills are superb, but all she wants to do is talk about her interests, not anybody else's. Now, the good news is one of her current obsessions is this, what is she, like a singer, songwriter, Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift? I think I've heard of her.
Taylor Swift, yeah. So that, but even still, she's just like so keyed in to the costumes and this Easter egg. And she doesn't really, she's not interested in what other people want to contribute. She just wants to talk at you. So it's very hard. And so I've become a lot more passionate about this topic. As you can see, I'm actually really fired up now. And I really want to start pitching articles that help raise awareness about how unbelievably hard it is for parents of neurodivergent children. And, I'm going on podcasts like yours to talk about it. There are many subtopics that need to be discussed, like how insanely expensive it is to get a diagnostic evaluation. It costs thousands and thousands of dollars. And I don't know yet how much my insurance is going to cover it. But this evaluation needed to happen. But again, I know my therapy practice is going to be submitting the claims, but this is also the American healthcare system, which we all know is broken. So the bottom line is that parents have to shell out thousands of dollars to find out what's up with their kid, and it's not okay. What else have I learned? All of those parenting influencers and experts writing books, offering coaching courses, and growing their huge social media followings. If I could give your listeners one takeaway from this podcast episode, it's this: unless that parenting influencer or expert specializes in neurodivergent children, do not waste your time or your money on what they're offering, because none of it works. The example I always like to give is Dr. Becky. I've interviewed her. I've read her book, Good Inside. I actually love a lot of her advice, and I wish that this advice existed when I was a child and that my parents had used it on me. It only works for neurotypical kids. None of that works for my daughter. Gentle parenting? Nope. I try to hear her out. I try to say, I'm listening. it's like an exercise in futility. I'm at a point right now where I know one of the many next steps I have to take is to basically learn how we can communicate with each other. And that's one of the many, many, many things I'm staring down the barrel at this summer, now that I have all of these new recommendations. The other thing that I do want to mention for people who are out there with neurodivergent children is that I see you and I feel you if you've had an experience where not everyone is supportive or accepting of your neurodivergent child, even though we've come a long way. So when my daughter was in kindergarten, I enrolled her in gymnastics, and unfortunately, it was a disaster. This is before we had any sort of diagnosis, but she didn't understand things like safety, and she became a problem with the coaches, and they wasted no time in making me feel like a failure. They would always pull me aside after every session saying, like, can we talk to you? You know, she's not being safe. And one had the audacity to say to me, she was in kindergarten, is she in school? And I was like, excuse me? I was so horrified by how we were being treated that finally I took her out of gymnastics, and they, of course, were like, yeah, we think that's a really good idea. So that was awful. And then recently I did ask a fellow mom about my daughter joining Girl Scouts in the fall, and she was very quick to say, oh, we're full. Now, that may be true, but it sent a really off-putting message to me. Like, as soon as she said that, and she's like, I'll let you know if a spot opens up, I immediately turned back to what I was doing. I was like, no. But on the flip side, I do want to end this part on a happy note, because so my daughter's been taking dance since she was in preschool. And this year, I was starting to think, you know what, because she's not as tight as the other girls and not always paying attention and doing her own thing. And, you know, this is a professional dance studio. As she gets older, she's going to be going into third grade. I was thinking I may have to pull her out of this because it's going to be hard for her needs and what the others needed. And I could not have been more wrong. The people at this dance studio are supportive and they are accepting. And the co-owner said to me that if I pulled her out, he used the words, that would be a tremendous shame. So I just want to take a moment to say, City Center Dance in White Plains, New York, you're amazing. And thank you so much, because I spoke to my daughter's teacher, and yeah, like I said, the co-owners, they want her to stay. And so I want everyone to know that there are groups and people out there who will embrace your neurodivergent child and they will support them. But sometimes you do need to look a little harder for them. And honestly, I never wanted to pull her out of dance anyway, because she's one of those who she does not sit still. So she needs to be moving around. She needs that dance as part of her life. So yeah, you have to be very cognizant of the people around you, because there are some who are going to let you down, but if you look carefully, there are going to be some people who are just going to make your day.
That's beautiful, Serene. And I think talking about dancing and her finding such a great community and acceptance in that dance class, that's probably potentially an answer to this next question. Maybe there's more, but
sure.
Talking about empowering your daughter to embrace her differences and navigating the world with confidence despite these challenges. Obviously, dance is one of the ways you're doing that. Yes. And I think that's incredible. What other things are you doing to empower her in that way?
I love that question, especially because that's all I've ever wanted to do with her, because I haven't been saying her name because, for the sake of her privacy, but she is named for Wonder Woman. So empowering her is very, very, very important to me. So like I said before, it's very difficult to have a conversation with her right now. So empowering her right now is a challenge. It really, really is. But again, the fact that she loves Taylor Swift, what a great role model to start with. What I try to do is I don't sugarcoat anything and I don't shield her from anything. I'm very honest with her. I believe in honesty. Both my husband and I, we come from families that it's easier to just sweep things under the rug. Don't talk about the bad stuff. And I don't believe in doing that because I've actually seen what harm that does. I've seen in my husband's family how when you don't communicate and you just keep secrets, don't talk about that. I've seen the destruction.
Same.
And I know you know that too. I know you know. So even though she may not understand everything right now, I don't keep anything from her. She knows that she has ADHD. We are going to have to start having more conversations with her about the fact that she is on the autism spectrum. And also just what fascinates me about her is that she does know in some ways what's happening with her brain. Like I'll ask her well, why didn't you do that? Why did you do that? Because I got distracted. And that's what I love. So open language and open communication is so important. And like I said, next step is figuring out strategies for not getting distracted, how to navigate this brain of hers and how to talk to her about these diagnoses. What we as parents of neurodivergent children have to do, and I'm at the very beginning of changing this mindset. We have to stop trying to fit square peg neurodivergent kids into neurotypical round holes. I am absolutely guilty of this because it's all I know. But we are now tasked with figuring out how to navigate how they see the world. And because that was just an image that came into my head just in the past 24 hours, because I feel like that's what we've been trying to do all this time, trying to fit her into a neurotypical mold. And now I'm at the stage where I need to learn how to do something else.
That's a wrap for today's conversation with Serene. If you enjoyed our chat, make sure you check out her podcast, Emotional Abuse is Real, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'd especially like to direct you to her episodes that dropped on June 5th and June 12th, where I opened up about my emotionally abusive first marriage. You can find links to her show, along with her socials, in today's show notes at secretmomhacks.com/episode 80. Be on the lookout for future episodes with Serene. I'll be releasing parts 3 and 4 very soon with episodes that cover self-care, postpartum doulas, and working from home. I'm curious what your favorite part of our interview was. I hope you're walking away inspired with tips either for yourself or that new mom you know. If that's the case, please follow me on your favorite podcast platform if you haven't already. Give me a 5-star rating and leave a review sharing your favorite takeaway so far. You can do all of that by going to ratethispodcast.com/secretmomhacks. Don't forget to stop by secretmomhacks.com where you can find resources and enter your email address so every new show is delivered straight to your inbox. Stay tuned for next week's episode, and until then, you've got this, mama.